Hare Krishna, Pratik and Spandan. Thank you for taking your time out to join on this discussion.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you for making me take my time out.
So we are often approached by our juniors regarding various queries related to this JAM examination, and hence we have tried to compile all those queries into a single, concise discussion. Pratik, Spandan and I, all three of us have cracked this JAM examination in the year 2021, and here we'll share our experiences so that the aspirants will get benefit from this. So starting by the first query, what are the biggest mistakes that you have noticed while taking preparation during for the exam, that you have noticed that other your friends are making or you yourself was making, that you have understood retrospectively?
Spandan, would you like to get started? I'll put you on the
Yes,
spot.
Mainack can direct.
Now you're put. Yeah, don't.
So yeah, we can go in alphabetical order. So Pratik, you can start. Actually, I come first, but I will come at last.
No issue. So the biggest mistakes that I have observed, biggest is a very big word, but mistakes in general that I've observed, which I have internalized in retrospect, I can state two of them. Very simple. First is students don't get started with the preparation attentively. Second is they are not active in their learning, they are kind of passive. To illustrate this, I'll just for some of the questions that are going to happen in this podcast, I plan to share content because the visual effect I hope would make the experience better. So what I want to illustrate is this thing. Some of you would identify the first line and second line both as central limit theorem. And the thing is, they are not different. They are equivalent. And if you guys have studied central limit theorem, you eventually get to know this. But when you first come across the concept, you are either going to come across maybe one equation or the other one. But it's this internalization, this active interpretation, active engagement with the math in front of you, that okay, it's like this is the main symbol and now I'm taking the summation of it, so the denominator is getting scaled by the n factor. This internalization that the student does, that has to be active. There can be multiple equations written in the textbook or in these days laptop and AI content and whatnot, but it's this active engagement with the material that is necessary to internalize that material and then use it in the competitive exam. That's what I feel that is not being done. Most of the time, we are not actively engaging with the material. We are not thinking about what we are studying.
Okay, so Spandan, you can go after this.
Yes, so as Pratik mentioned, starting early and giving us planned start to the preparation is very important. Also, while starting, people often tend to collect too many resources and basically divert their focus. So what happens is, for one particular subject, they collect this book, this note, that note. But in the end, they end up reading only the basics, because each content will start with the basic. So they're iterating the same thing, but they can't end up going to the depths. So it is always best to choose one or two standard texts or resources and give the full effort reading them completely. That will be very helpful. Secondly, I think students often ignore some analysis topics or the mathematical topics. They tend to focus more on the statistical parts, but mathematical topics are also very important, and they are also helpful for determining your rank towards the top. So that is what is the main factor in the competition, if you see among the top 50 rankers. Also, students often devote too much time in reading instead of solving problems. But I think, like, I have also personally seen Mainack. He used to solve a lot of problems while he was preparing, and that has really helped him. But on the other hand, I did this mistake of not solving that many problems. And for that reason, I faced challenges while giving the exam. I was basically taking more time solving each question. So giving more focus on solving problems, and also consistency is a very big factor. So some 1 or 2 days, we are just doing like 12 hours of study for JAM, but the next 4 or 5 days, we are not devoting any time. That is not that much fruitful compared to giving 3 hours maybe 2-3 hours of consistent effort each and every day, because students will have their own bachelor studies or other studies that they're doing along with the preparation. So yeah, these 3-4 points, I would say.
I will focus mainly during the last 10 years, last 6 months or 3 months, how you should study, how you should prepare. So one thing is Spandan has mentioned is that practicing more and more sums. But during the last 10 years, you should also have a time constraint. Just practicing sum is not enough. You have to complete it within a specific time period. For example, 2 minutes or 1.5 minutes. So that is my first point. Second is that if you are doing a silly mistake, if you are doing a mistake, any type of mistake, write it down in a copy. Next, when you try to solve another next sum, revise that earlier mistake so that you won't repeat that same mistake. So after making 100 or 150 mistakes, you will have a big list of mistakes that you have already made. And when you go to the exam, first revise all the mistakes that you have done, and you will automatically realize that the mistakes that you could have done in the exam, it has drastically reduced. So this has helped me a lot, actually, knowing your mistakes. And also, group study is important. You cannot do everything alone. So studying in groups, the people you trust is very important, and group study really helps a lot, because you will gain multiple strategies of solving the same sum in various ways, in various efficient ways that you yourself cannot think. So I think these are the points from my side. So we can move on to the next query. So suppose you couldn't solve a problem during practice. What did you do? Like, how much time should an aspirant spend on a single problem before looking at the solution? So Pratik, you can start.
Here I like to use the machine learning paradigm. Firstly, I'll give the disclaimer that I'll not be answering on the basis of just one single problem. To me, the problem of solving this is on a much bigger scale. So this machine learning paradigm, most of us are familiar with the training and testing, that when we build models, when we build neural networks, we have reservations, 70% training data, 30% testing data. I did the same paradigm when I was preparing. So by that I mean, I would sort out some questions in a particular topic in which I would give myself full liberty to just look at the solution if I got stuck, and then there will be a separate set of questions on the same topic which I would force myself to spend more time. Even if I'm not able to come at the solution, I'll not look at the solution. I'll spend some significant amount of more time on trying to solve that question in my testing data set. And that's how I would proceed. At an even more fundamental level or subtle level, I would do this training testing at the individual problem also, in the sense that when I'm looking at the solution, I know that I'm looking at the solution. I'll try to look at it in bit, like layer by layer. I'll not just look at the direct solution. I'll try to look, say, at the 70% of the hints given and see if I can solve the sum on the basis of them. If not, then I'll look at the complete solution. So this, again, the paradigm of machine learning, which is dividing the question bank that you have into training and testing and treating them appropriately, that helps, I feel, in building your mastery on the subject.
Spandan, you can go.
Yes, so this has already been mostly answered, I think, by Pratik. I would just like to mention, if you want to take a exact time bound, you can consider, say, roughly 20-25 minutes while you are practicing a problem, not while giving the exam. When you are practicing problems, prior to that, you must have gone through the theory for a significantly longer amount of time. And while you are solving, you can explore different angles. Say you give a time bound of 25 minutes. If that is crossed, then as Pratik mentioned, you can see hints, then again try. And at the end, if you can't succeed, then perhaps you can see the full solution. So yeah.
Okay. So mostly this has been answered. So we can move on to the next query. How should one ideally give a mock test at their home? So Pratik, you can go with this.
So you would want to simulate your fake environment that is as close to the real environment as possible. In this case, just two important things come to mind. It should be a relatively quiet environment where you can focus, and second, you must have a time clock with you. You shouldn't give yourself the liberty of giving a mock test for 4 hours when the test duration is just 3 hours. Ideally, try to make your time limit 10% below the actual time limit of exam. In this way, you are trained to attempt the exam at a faster pace. And recently, I am reading a book by Adam Grant. It's a bestseller, which is called Think Again. And there it's illustrated this concept of first instinct fallacy, where students, he's describing research in this space, that it has been researched that students during exams, they sometimes have this feeling that the answer that I gave to that question is maybe wrong. Maybe I need to change that to another option. And usually they don't make that change. And some data in the research is indicating that making the change is better. It's kind of like that Bayes theorem set up again, that Monty Python problem. But the thing is, whenever you are attempting a mock, even if you don't answer a question in the mock, make a note. What would have been my most educated guess for this question? The reason being, suppose you answered 50 out of 60 questions, 10 questions you don't. But if you take a note of what my answer would have been and then you look at the solution, your brain is kind of being trained to build an instinct or an intuition, which you may choose to leverage at the moment of the exam also. So building that is also very important, and mock tests give us an opportunity to do that. Even the questions that we don't answer, we can note what would have been our answer at if we had to answer.
Yes, so if I have to add a few points, firstly, you should try to give the mock test in the time slot of the original exam, like when your jam exam will be scheduled in that time. I think that might vary a little bit in the morning slot or in the evening slot, but you will get to know that at least 1 month before. So yes, prepare the biological clock sort of in that way. Also your diet, your sleeping schedule, waking up schedule, and you can keep a small scribble pad similar to the one we got while giving the exam. So like exactly as Pratik mentioned, try to simulate the environment as closely as possible. And the frequency, if you ask about that, that can be at least during this time when you have around 1 month. You can perhaps keep it on every alternate day, or once in 3 days you can give one mock paper, analyze your solutions, your mistakes, and try to improve. Yeah, that's all from my side.
So mostly all the points have been covered. So I will just add one point. Please use virtual calculator and not your scientific calculator. The virtual calculator you can have access in the JAM website, where they officially take a mock test, which is basically the previous year question. So every time you give a mock exam, use virtual calculator and not the scientific calculator. This will help you a lot. So we can move on to the next query. So how did you deal with low mock scores or self-doubt in general?
So the question is, how did I deal with failures, basically low mock scores, self-doubt? My approach was to come as best as I could, come to terms with a possible reality where I was going to fail in the exam. I wanted to be comfortable with the idea that there could be failure, high chances, it's a competitive exam. And again, from Adam Grant's book, just recently I got this concept of imposter syndrome, that many people in various facets of life, they feel that whatever field they are entering, they don't exactly belong there. Others are better than them, or they are out of place. This is called imposter syndrome. The good thing about it is that it makes us alert and on the edge, that because we feel that we don't belong here, so to speak, which is a thing that I was feeling while preparing for the competitive exams. We tend to get more creative in the ways that we could make it and we could fit in. So that thing helps. And coming face to face with the reality that you could fail is, in my mind, a good strategy, because it makes us already see the worst and sort of backtrace from it, rather than just keeping that thought aside. For some people, a strategy of never even thinking about failure could be better, but based on the stuff that I have been reading recently, and based on my own personal preferences, I feel that even if there is self-doubt or low results, it's fine to consider these possibilities of failure and make your peace with it, and then you come back to the foreground with good rest.
So I would just like to showcase a slightly different point of view. Whenever one got low marks in any mock paper, say, don't see at your score, look at your score. Rather, have a different perspective. You can look like what is the percentage of the questions that you attempted. You can see what the mistakes that you did. You can also see sort of the strike rate that you had during the exam. In other words, you perhaps attempted 90 questions of 90 marks and you got say 30, 40. So that perhaps indicates that you guessed some of the questions. So that it is better not to do random guessing, rather attempt only the ones that you know, sort of trying to increase your consistency and accuracy. So having a different point of view will help. That is my takeaway.
So failure is a part of the process. So last day I was hearing a lecture where it is told that failures are the stepping stone for success. So failures are inevitable. So we should try to live by it. It is a part of, as I have already told, it is a part of the process. So try to understand where you lack and try to rectify it, because this it is mock exam. It is not the real exam. So if you have done something wrong, it is not the end. You have to learn from it, and so that you do not do these mistakes in the real exam. That is the purpose of the mock exam altogether. Also, you can for getting motivation. I used to hear Mahabharata. I used to watch Mahabharata, and I used to hear how Sri Krishna used to guide Arjuna during when he actually lost his composure. So that used to give me motivation. So all of you can watch that also. Anything that gives you motivation. So next is
Yeah, before we go to the next, I really like that Mainack said this line, failures are the stepping stone to success, from a lecture recently, which was yesterday with respect to the day of the podcast, and both of us were in that lecture. Later in the lecture, it was also said one. It's very important. That's why I wanted to take a moment and call it out. Failures are a stepping stone to success, yes, but failures can be stepping stones to even more further failures. So it is important that, as Spandan had illustrated the guidelines in his part of the answer, to assess the failure and how to recover from it. Don't be in delusion that it's just okay to fail. It's okay to fail with a mindset to make new mistakes, not repeat the old mistakes. So it is very important.
correct. So that I've already mentioned in the first question. Actually, always note down your mistakes so that you won't repeat the same mistake. Yeah. So the next query is that we prepare all the year, but the last month is very crucial. So how did we utilize our final month? So Spandan, you can start actually for this question.
Yes, I was actually thinking about that. So during the last month, first thing I would suggest is don't try to learn new topics. Whatever you have learned so far, you should stick to that and try to make them better, the concepts better. Next point is you can do a sort of PYQ loop. By that I mean you can solve previous year questions of that same exam that you're going to give. That will give you a immense amount of confidence boost, because you will face similar kind of questions and give them in the sort of examination environment. Also try to adjust your bio clock so that it becomes favorable for the exam. Don't stay like awake late at night. Try to sleep early, wake up early. This is not just a suggestion, but many studies and many authors of great books, like there is one famous book, I'm forgetting the name, about habits. There it was mentioned how many CEOs and great managers and world leaders sort of they follow this kind of 5 a.m. club. Yes, 7 habits of highly effective people. So this waking up early will give you more time throughout the day. So that is useful, beneficial also for the exam. And then you can do revision of formulas, because it is expected that you will remember some trivial formulas or results rather than deriving them in the exam. That will save you a lot of time. But it also doesn't mean that you have to memorize very complicated results. So these 4 points from my side. Yeah.
So Pratik, you can go.
Yeah, I'll just give a visual description of everything that Spandan has said till now. I really hope the screen is visible. It's one of my greatest creations so far.
Yes.
So I hope it's visible to the viewers as well, but if not, then I'm just calling it out. Infinity minus 1 equals to infinity. It basically symbolizes if you have done sufficient preparation before the last month of the exam, which I consider a preliminary prerequisite to give the exam, then the last month will not make learning new things in the last month will not make much of a difference. Rather, it can be detrimental if you take the stress of learning too many things in the last month. Rather, focus and critically think on what you already know and derive confidence from that, and it should be fine. That's all.
So it was a great visual description, Pratik. I will just add some points. Please avoid eating street foods or any spicy foods during that month. It will impact your health and it will be detrimental to your routine. Next is, during the last month, always be in a problem solving mode. Always solve the problems with a time constraint. Don't take unlimited amount of time. Always like fix your mind that you have to solve the problem within a specific time period, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes, and not more than that. Always be in that mode and always revise your mistakes that you have done. Always revise that. Like you revise your formula sheets, always also revise this mistakes list also. That will really help. So next we can move on to the next query. Looking back, what is the one thing we feel we should have done differently to improve our score further? Spandan.
Firstly, it is like giving more mock test or practicing more problems, which I didn't do, to be very honest. Secondly, finishing up a major bulk of the syllabus. I actually kept a few very important topics for the last month, like which is completely opposite to what Pratik said, and really it was detrimental, to be honest. So these are some of the regrets that I had.
Pratik.
Yeah, I'll clarify that I also gave the prerequisite that before the last month you have to make use of the n-1 months given to you. So yeah, viewers, beware of this. Okay, I'll also share the screen. I'll share the screen again, and I have another visualization to help internalize the point I want to make. So the thing is, it's basically for those who may not be able to see. This is a log curve, and the thing about log curve is that in the initial few steps as you take, you have a lot of increment. So this basically symbolizes initially when you are learning the material, you start with nothing. So even learning the basics of real analysis, probability distributions, bivariate normal, it's all a very important boost for you to be able to solve your problems. But after that, there comes a point which I call right now the subtle point, after which just learning the new things or anything like that will not make a difference. That is the subtle point. After that, something else needs to be done, which I feel is more on the mind side of things, correlated with spirituality. So the thing that I feel that I should have done differently, obviously conditioned on this, that I already had a lot of topics in my head, was I wanted to do more of my spiritual sadhana properly. The reason being, my practices have helped me calm down my mind and become more efficient and fast. And in retrospect, I feel that had I been more as consistent as I am now than I was back then, on the moment of exam, my mind would have been more in my control and not as restless as it was. So that's something that really stayed with me, and that is why I have this illustration that beyond a certain point, you have to learn how to sustain your learning better and how to execute better. So that's where mindful practices and spirituality helps. So that is something that I wish I had done differently.
So this problem actually, I also faced the same problem, this mind problem. I used to do meditation, but it was not enough. And also another problem is that I used to take very high load of stress, which was unnecessary, and that backfired because it led to some health issues. So it is better not to take stress because it is not in our hand, and if it is not in our hand, why we are even taking stress on that? So don't take too much stress. It is useless. So moving on. How did you keep the formulas from the first month fresh in your month by the end month before the exam? Pratik, you can start.
My trick was this wall that you see, it's blurred, but all of it was pasted with sheets, formula sheets throughout my, I don't know, 12-month plus journey of preparation. That is how it helped me because I understood the drawbacks of my limited memory. So having the formulae written in a paper or compiled from various sources actively and attentively by me, it served two benefits. First, when I was compiling the formulae myself, I had more of a personal investment in the process. There was an emotional connect which made me connect with the formula even better because I was choosing each and every formula that I wanted to write and have it pasted on the wall. Second thing, now that I have everything pasted in the wall, I had like 32 A4 size pages pasted on the wall or more than that. Whenever I'm solving a problem in my room, I get stuck. It really saved my time because I had formed like a web connection in my head. For this area, my formula is over there. For this area, my formula is over there. I could easily solve the problems much faster than I would have if I didn't have these formulae list put on the wall. So that is something I'll strongly recommend. Make a personal investment of the formulae that you want pasted on the wall and paste it and use them. That's it.
From my end, I had a few pages of formulas which I organized. But to be honest, I was not that organized. But ideally, what one should have is what Pratik mentioned, and he did also. So they should have dedicated formula sheets or pages where all the important formulas are written. They can also add intuitions and some other deeper insights of those formulas because that also helps us to memorize those things. Like for example, in case of an exponential distribution with some rate lambda, the mean is 1 over lambda. So why the mean is inversely proportional to lambda. So we have all those intuitions, right? So for larger lambda, we will have smaller waiting times and things like that. So I used to remember them in that way. Similarly for geometric distribution, the expectation is 1 over p. So this kind of things, why that is the case. And then one should ideally have a revision block. So the last 2 months of topics that they learned, they should revise them regularly. And every day they should devote 30 minutes going through the formula sheets in a cumulative manner. Even though they like remember everything in a crystal clear way, still devote that time because that will have a much deeper imprint on your mind, on your subconscious mind also. So these 3-4 things are very helpful.
Okay, so we can move on to the next query. How did you attempt the paper and what specific time limits did you set for each section? Spandan, you can start.
As far as I remember, so I had it written somewhere. Yeah. So we have these 3 sections, right? In this exam paper.
Yes.
In the section A, we have MCQs, then MSQ, then NAT. So what I did is I started with the first section of MCQs, then moved on to NAT. Then at the end, I attempted the MSQs. A further detailing of that was in section A, I started with the last 20 questions because they carry more weightage, right? The first 10 are carrying, I think, 1, weightage 1, and the last 20 of 2. So that 20 questions are actually the biggest bulk. So I tried to solve as many questions in quickest time as possible from that bulk, then move to NAT. So kind of that. So any student, they can have their own kind of mindset and strategy, but they should keep these things in mind because MSQ questions, they are often very tricky. They can take a long amount of time, and also you might end up doing them wrongly. So it is best to invest time upon them towards the end. So that was more or less my strategy as far as I can recall. Yeah.
Pratik.
Here again, as I mentioned in the last question, there's a correlation. I wish I had more mindfulness because I attempted the paper in its actual chronological order. However, during my practices, a lot of mock tests that I had given, I had understood this about the flow of things, that intuitively how much time to spend on a question, and if you're not able to do it, just move to the next question. That strategy was good for me. But on the day of the exam, I was partly I was baffled by this desire that I really want to answer all the questions, because in my mocks there was indication that I was able to do that, and that messed things up for me. The data driven approach, the data that I had accumulated for more than an year, on the day of exam I could not use it because of my ego, that yeah, I will answer all the questions and like full marks, world record, this, that, I don't know. So that, but after a few such failures, like I knew I was taking too much time, I again came back to the strategy of giving just little time and then moving on if I was unable to answer. But that first hour of the exam, that was slightly wasted because of that. So that is something, like that's how I gave the paper. Identify the strategy before the competitive exam. Give hundreds and thousands of competitive exam before your competitive exam, so your competitive exam is just a normal exam. And on the day of that exam, please stick to the data driven strategy that you have accumulated and devised based on those thousands of exams that you gave. It's very risky to do something intuitive and heroic or stupid on the spot. That's very risky.
So I would like to add one point that Pratik said. I also like, okay, first of all, I started with MCQ, then NAT, and then MSQ. The intuition was that because MCQ contains negative marking, so I thought I will use my best brain to solve that. And NAT doesn't have, like, if I solve one MCQ, I will see an answer and it will give me confidence. But if I, like, many of them start with NAT, but I don't get confidence in that, because suppose I get an answer, I don't know whether it is actually true or not. Like, I can't see anything. And MSQ are the most tricky section, I would say, and it is better to attempt it at last, because you have to match all the options and you will unknowingly invest more amount of time there that you should have invested. So it is, so I chose that. And also what Pratik is said, that go by the data driven approach. So I first thought that I will give in MCQ 1 hour, because the earlier papers were easy compared to the paper that we have faced during our year. It was really a difficult paper, and the most difficult paper I faced, like, for all the years that I have practiced, this was the most difficult paper. And the time limit that I have thought that I will give in each section actually didn't work for this. You can, like, this data is not available in my data set, so I cannot use the previous data here. That is, I want to add, like, I have done MCQ and MSQ, that I have maintained, but I couldn't maintain the time limit that I have assigned. So earlier I have thought I would give 1 hour big, but in exam I couldn't solve the problems, and in 1 hour I couldn't attempt much of the section, so I have to extend it to 1.5 hour, and there actually shifted everything. If I haven't given that 1.5 hour, then I would have scored less, I think, because like, with situation you have to adapt yourself. You cannot just mechanically do everything. Since this question paper was totally new, so I have to adapt a change. So I have given 1.5 hour, and then I have given more time to revise, because earlier papers I could have solved in 2 hours only. But here 2 hours was not enough for this paper. 1.5 hour was MCQ, it was 50 marks, and then I have given 40 minutes for NAT, then MSQ 30 minutes, and then I've come back for revise. So yeah, your paper can be more difficult than this also, actually. So don't just fix your time limit. Like, you have to adapt sometimes based on this unexpected situations also. But what Pratik said is that don't mix the sequence that you are answering. That will cause trouble, because your mind is based on that actually. Okay. Anything you want to add, both of you, or we can move on to the next
Yes.
question?
Moral of the story:
Yes,
use
Pratik.
robust data driven approaches.
Okay. Thank you.
I just wanted to just add one point. So, like, numerically specific answer to this question is, you can devote around 45 to 60 minutes solving section A first 10 questions and section C first 10 questions, which are of 1 marks, which are usually easier than the others. Then the main bulk of around 90 minutes, 1.5 hours, for section A, question number 11 to 30, which is the biggest bulk, and section C, 51 to 60. the second part of NAT. Then the remaining time you can give to MSQ, because this 90 and 60, around 150 minutes, in which you are solving almost the entire paper except the MSQ portion, that carries a huge marks and weightage. So that can be a good plan that you make. But as Mainack mentioned, for unexpected situations also, you should be prepared. You should have some sort of backup plans that you might need to incorporate while giving the exam. Yes.
So did you ever feel during the exam that this paper is going bad? And how did you recover from that thought if you have ever faced this in the 2021 JAM exam? So Pratik, you can start.
I am going out of syllabus over here because I didn't feel that thought in a very strong magnitude during that exam, but I did feel it, and I think the answer will correlate. That's why I'm sharing. I did feel it during my BStat ISI exam, for which I was not at all well prepared. So during that time, what can happen is you are almost sure, you feel like you are not going to make it, but there's also this simultaneous fantasy that maybe I think I'll make it if I try. But the point is, these two conflicting things create a mixture of your situation at the moment of the exam, and there's a sense of sadness also that you feel. The thing to address this again, one of my paradigms is to be well prepared before the moment of exam, so that even when you feel that there are a few questions you cannot answer, they are no, parallelly you have a lot of questions you did answer, so that counters it. But if you are not well prepared, no way to sugarcoat it, you can be devastated in the moment of exam, and that would be it.
So yes, in my case also, I was pretty much not prepared to face that level of difficulty, because it was arguably the most difficult paper that we gave, given the data we had. So I think one strategy can be of basically training your brain for facing more and more such unexpected situations. Basically, where you can simulate this kind of situations. Say it might be a difficult mock paper, which you know that, or which you perhaps don't know that you will be able to solve, like facing questions of unexpected difficulty. So that will train your brain, that will develop many good qualities, like in the sense of giving exam, to be more precise, not sticking to one problem when you can't solve it, given that you have already devoted a big amount of time to that. So that is one thing. Also, knowing what are the problems you can solve. So you develop all these skills when you face, or when you give, say, a few difficult kind of mock papers. So these are some of the points that I would like to mention.
So I would like to tell the real life experience what I faced during JAM. So when I just started answering the question, it was MCQ and it was 1 mark questions, and I was unable to solve. So like consecutively 3 problems I couldn't solve. The first 3 problems I couldn't solve. Like I was like, it was really unexpected for me because the questions are difficult. It is not that I am like I couldn't remember the formulas or I couldn't solve. The questions are so difficult and tricky I was feeling at that time. I couldn't solve any 3 of them, and it actually brought down my confidence to zero. Then I just dropped down my pen and I set for meditation. I meditated for around 30 seconds. I just closed my eyes and I was meditating to like quiet my mind. It was like running abruptly. And then I was giving myself this confidence that I was just repeatedly saying to me that if I couldn't solve this after so many practices, then everyone is facing that same difficulty. It is not that I am only one that is facing this. It is everyone that is facing this. Although I don't know that it was true or not at that time, but it really calmed me. So because I have like it was not arrogance, but it was confidence because I have practiced a lot with my friends. So this actually calmed my mind, and then I started again solving the problems, and then it actually went on, and I didn't stuck anymore after that. So yeah, this is that. Do you feel are more important compared to the others? Because there are so many topics. So we can start with Pratik.
I would start by saying my feelings don't matter. Data matters. and I'll show you guys a little basic pie chart that I have on the matter to give a directional read of reality. It is the question topic distribution of 2025 JAM, the most recent IIT JAM mathematical statistics paper that is there at the time of this podcast. Yeah, and take the digestion, internalization of this. But on the basis of what you will see in front of you, you'll see there's a lot of weightage to computation of probability. There will be random variables given and you are expected to compute the probability around that. There will be real analysis and questions centered around probability distributions. So this is kind of forming the bulk, and as you will see, and that there are some topics that are correlating amongst each other. It's not very mutually exclusive and exhaustive, but it gives the directional read of the topics that you would want to cover for the exam. And that is it from my side.
Yes, so as Pratik has already given a very scholarly and data-driven answer to this question, my takeaway is also kind of the same, as I myself have seen like many previous year question papers. So the theory of random variables, probability distributions, then you have the inferential topics, estimation testing, and like analysis algebra. Analysis algebra, specifically sequence series, and in linear algebra, main core concepts like rank, determinant, inverse, all those concepts. These often carry very high weightage, but it doesn't mean that you can completely skip the topics with lower weightage. You should have some level of idea so that you can solve basic to medium level questions from any topic. But you should definitely have clear-cut concepts of these important topics. Yes.
So next question is that one habit that helped your jam preparation the most. Pratik.
Okay. Studying right after taking a bath. I'll tell you why. With this concept of Pareto distribution that's so well instilled in my brain after 2.5 years plus in corporate. Let me share my screen. So essentially the principle is it comes from statistical distributions only, that whatever you are achieving and all, or any work that you're doing, 80% of the work or majority of the work can be done by 20% of the items. That is, a small proportion of items are responsible for a larger output in the work. Here it is on the screen in front of you. Exactly. So as I was saying, there usually in many places it's found that 20% of the effort, here 20 is like a directional number to signify that relatively small amount of effort drives a large amount of result. A good example was the pie chart that we just saw. There are some topics that are going to drive a lot of weightage and not so much for the other topics. What I realized was studying immediately after taking a bath was when my mind was most fresh for some reason. It could be a general phenomenon, or it could be prevalent in other individuals as well. And if I used the next 2 hours to study, I felt that I had really studied and absorbed a lot of material, and that gave me confidence to study further as well. And it was my observation that throughout the day, when you start studying, the moment when you start studying, you tend to, if you start right, you tend to study more effectively, and gradually as the day progresses, even though you may be studying, taking notes and doing whatever, you are not absorbing at the same rate as you were at the start of your day. So I thought during my exam preparation, what was the time period when I could start best, or what were the circumstances when I could start best? And for me, it was right after taking a bath. So that is one habit that I developed. And today also, if I have to do any kind of thing which is important, I give it priority just after I take my bath.
Yes, so for me, some habits were firstly doing some form of meditation.
One habit.
Oh, so if one habit was definitely meditation, that really helped me calm down myself in difficult situations. Yes.
Okay, and I will just recite a verse of Bhagavad Gita. Shri Krishna told Arjuna, Abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasa nanya gamina. So the English translation of abhyas is practice. Practice, practice, and everything will happen. And the last question is, if you had to give just one piece of advice to a JAM statistics aspirant appearing this year, what would it be? Spandan, you can start.
So you should know that not everything is in your hand. The only aspect that is in your hand is the preparation that you are taking for this entire amount of time, that infinity minus one analogy that Pratik gave. So that is from your end. And in the exam hall, anything can happen. But given the effort, you should it should be clear to you where you are standing. And you should have similar kind of expectations given your own preparation, which you know the best. And again, I would also like to add that this is definitely not the only exam or the only opportunity that you will get in life. There are innumerable opportunities out there in today's world. So don't worry about that. And all the best. Yeah.
Pratik.
It was a nice answer. Essentially, my answer is something I thought I had a photo for this, but I had to create it on the spot while Spandan was giving his answer. My answer is a convex combination of things. So it has to be parallel. One advice, two things in parallel. This side that you see on the screen, this alpha thing, the X over here is your attentive and active engagement with the material in front of you. It could be making notes that are very personalized. It could be anything else, but you have to form a connection with the material. It has to be active and attentive, because at the moment of exam, after the exam everybody comes out and says, yeah, I knew the formula to this, I knew the theory, but what happens at the moment of exam? You need to form connections fast, and having active engagement while preparation, that helps you. And the other side of the equation in this convex combination are mindful spiritual practices that you need to take parallelly alongside with you, because they give you a sense of how trivial is the exam that you are facing. So that gives two benefits, because you internalize that the life is much more than this exam. You are not going to be devastated if you fail, which can be very likely. Honestly speaking, I don't sugarcoat things often. And the other benefit is, because it's trivial for you, it psychologically sort of tricks you into thinking, yeah, it's not that big of a deal, I can do it. So it's like this, weirdly two things happen parallelly. It has been my experience. So this is what I will say. This convex combination, attention and active engagement one side, spirituality on the other side. That's it.
And mine will be that it is not mine actually, it is Krishna's advice. That if you have done enough abhyas, if you have done enough practice, have faith in yourself and Krishna will carry you. So yeah. And thank you, Spandan and Pratik. Here will end our discussion. I hope it will help the aspirants a lot. Thank you very much.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna.
All the best to anybody and everybody who is watching this, including myself if I get narcissistic at night.